We're good to go.
Okay, we're streaming. Yep, you're streaming. You're live. Well, thank you everyone for your patience. We will call the meeting of Yelm City Council for April 13th, 2021 to order, and we'll do so by our tradition of saluting the flag, which may be on your screen or in council chambers is over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Councilmember James Blair. Councilmember Molly Carmody.
I have heard from Councilmember Carmody. She will not be attending this evening.
Councilmember EJ Curry.
Here.
Councilmember Tracy Wood.
Here.
Councilmember Joe DePinto.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Kaminsky.
Here.
Mayor J.W. Foster.
Here.
Thank you.
I'll be right with you folks. Thank you everybody for coming in, and I want to thank again our staff for providing the opportunity to do a hybrid meeting. So we're going to have Councilmember DePinto and Curry in council chambers along with me. And then we have Councilmember Wood and Councilmember Kaminsky on Zoom. And I just want to do a voice check, even though I heard you calling in. Councilmember Wood, can you hear and see all other members of the council?
I can.
And Councilmember Kaminsky, same question.
Perfectly, thank you.
Right. And council members Curry and DePinto, are you able to see and hear the other council members on the Zoom meeting?
Perfectly. Absolutely.
Very good. All right. You'll have to bear with me for just a moment here because we had a little crash. I want to pull up my agenda again. Get started. We're going to have a little reminder or a little change in the agenda here in just a moment. Bear with me.
Mayor Foster,
Yes.
are we supposed to vote on excusing either of the two missing council members?
Thank you for that point of order, Councilmember Curry. You have two council members who are absent. Councilmember Carmody followed protocol and called in before 5 p.m. to say her absence. Councilmember Blair has not made that phone call. It's up to the council to excuse council members from the meetings.
I move we excuse council member Carmody.
A second.
Seconded by Councilmember Curry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And Councilmember Carmody will be recorded as an excused absence for this meeting. Councilmember DePinto?
Move to excuse Councilmember Blair.
There's been a motion by Councilmember DePinto to excuse Councilmember Blair. Needs a second to proceed. Failing to achieve a second, the motion dies. Councilmember Blair, unless he joins the meeting later, will be shown as an unexcused absence for this meeting by your protocol. For tonight's agenda, Council, I would ask that we that the council approves a change in the agenda to take item 7, which is old business. And that is about the annexation petition request, and move that to the first item of business after the consent agenda, so that we can accommodate Mr. Shorno in his desire to address council before we get on with the rest of our business. So the motion would be to move item 7 up to item 5B.
So move.
So moved by Councilmember Kari, Councilmember Kaminsky.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed to that motion? Great, then we'll take it in that order. Thanks, Council. At this point, we have no special presentations. Our student of the month will be next week. They had a spring break, so that we moved everything back a week, but we do have one for next meeting. And so we move on to public comment, and I'm going to look first at our attendees. I do see a hand up. I'd like to take the attendee. I see Mr. Hess would like to address council, and then we'll move on to others in the room. Mr. Hess, you have 3 minutes to address the council on any matters that are not before the council on the agenda tonight.
Actually, I wanted to talk about one of the agenda items, and it is the annexation for that, the petition for annexation. I observed the study group last week in reference to that, and I heard that and I also saw and read from the minutes that your staff recommended against it. Additionally, your city attorney also had recommended consideration of not doing that. My concern with the petition for annexation is that it goes against, just as the staff said, goes against the city's policies and with their plan, in the sense that there is no water to do any development. He cannot do anything at this time when he annexes. And to take into consideration those previously who might have applied for annexation, that it just doesn't make sense. If they couldn't meet the standard, why are you allowing somebody else to meet the standard? We need to, as a city, adhere to the standard according to the rules that you, as the elected officials, have adopted amongst your city, your meetings and everything. So I ask that when it comes time for that consideration, that you do not allow it to happen, because it goes against everything that has gone on up to this point. And I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. And I mean no disrespect at this. This is a great opportunity for us to demonstrate what we mean when we open up public comment. We ask that public comment to the city council be first on issues that are not on the agenda, which might come up for discussion later. And the reason for that is that during the agenda moment on the council's meeting, there may be information provided to all attendees that could inform their discussion or their comments that they would like to make. In this particular case is a great example. As you'll see, that item has been moved up, and there'll be some changes that would inform your commentary, I'm quite sure. So are there any other members of the attendees, the citizenry, who would like to address the council on any item that is not on the agenda tonight? Again, I will go back to our folks who are participants, and I'll just give it a moment to see if any hands go up. And I see none. So we're going to move on from the public comment. We're going to move to the consent agenda, because you'll be on the next meeting. Next thing. The consent agenda is simply the March minutes. Somebody who read the minutes?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, Councilmember Wood moved to approve, seconded by Councilmember Kaminsky on the screen there. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. We have the consent agenda. All right, by the council's decision to move up, we now have item 7, which was the application to circulate a petition for annexation that had been previously recommended for denial by our staff, and it comes before you tonight after having an opportunity to look at it, the study session more. The applicant himself has come to the meeting tonight, wishes to address the council on this matter, and which will then result in an action item that we'll have you take a look at in just a minute. Mr. Shorno?
Thank you, City Council, Mayor, staff, for taking the time to explore the current annexation policy. And while I think most of us believe it is wrong and out of date, I ask to postpone the petition for annexation until there is clarity that this action would do no harm to the current water right application. The policy is changed, or Yelm receives its deserved allocation from ecology.
Thank you, Mr. Shorno. With that request from the applicant, we've worked with staff to make sure that this would be the correct action to take. Councilmember Curry has offered to make that motion, and then we can have discussion on that motion.
I move to postpone the decision on the application to circulate a petition for annexation until such time as the Washington State Department of Ecology has issued their report of examination on the city's water rights application, or agrees to allow the city of Yelm to proceed with annexations without harming the current water rights application.
Do we hear a second on that?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember DePinto. Any discussion by council? I see that Councilmember Blair has joined us, but perhaps missed the preamble by Mr. Shorno. Councilmember Blair, were you able to hear that addressed by Mr. Shorno?
I did not.
In short, Mr. Shorno has asked the city council to postpone his application to circulate a petition for annexation until such time that the Department of Ecology changes the rules, basically, either gives us our water rights or allows us to annex properties without harming the water plan, comp plan, or our application to the Department of Ecology for those water rights. A motion was just read, which I believe you did hear, and was seconded by Councilmember DePinto. Do you have any questions or comments on the motion before us?
No.
Councilmember DePinto.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to comment that I believe, as Mr. Shorno said, that it is a little antiquated, some of our policies on that, and understanding, we don't want to jeopardize any water rights. We're so close to achieving them from ecology. It weighed a lot on my decision on that, and I get where staff's recommendation to deny is legitimate and understanding. So with that, I do appreciate Mr. Shorno for coming in to explain his position and withdrawing his appeal. Excuse me.
Okay, without further discussion being raised, an aye vote would approve Mr. Shorno's request to postpone his application for circulation of a petition to annex. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes, and we again want to thank Mr. Shorno for working with the city on this really important issue, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that these water rights are coming sooner than later. We can see the light at the end of a very short tunnel, and a bright future lies ahead for all.
Mayor, are we going to get an update?
The next thing actually is on the water rights, if you'd like to stick around and hear it.
Sure, sounds
Perfect timing. Okay, council, we're back to our agenda as it stood. So 6A, the water rights overview update by Community Development Director Grant Beck.
Thank you, Mayor, and who is hoping that the light at the end of the tunnel is not an oncoming train, but I'm pretty confident that we're getting close to the finish line on this project, which started back in 1994. Last year, as you've been briefed, we submitted our updated mitigation package to the Department of Ecology. A tremendous amount of work went into that package, although it looks a lot like the mitigation package that we had previously submitted to Ecology that was approved and was referred to by the Department of Wildlife as the gold standard of out-of-kind mitigation. But we took our time and care to make sure that it met all the intentions that the legislature put into the pilot project when they authorized the use of out-of-kind mitigation. If you go through a mitigation sequencing project and show them that there's no other option to mitigate water for water or drop to drop. In addition, the plans, and this was also new to the legislation, the mitigation plans have to have a net ecological benefit to the watershed. That term was not well defined in the law, so we took our care with our water rights team and the mitigation strategist to make sure that we ran it through a number of different types of models that look at ecological benefit, and to make sure that it would pass the test, whatever that test was. It's kind of a belt and suspenders approach, but we wanted to make sure that, because we're the first ones out of the gate, we want to set a high standard for those that follow us, and make sure that we get this approval. So the ecology has had it for a while. They did a preliminary review with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. They had some questions earlier this year, mostly very small technical details, and they were also ready to receive our final net ecological benefit analysis. And we hadn't finalized that because we wanted to get their initial reaction to make sure we were on the right path, and didn't want to paint them into a corner and have to say that it wasn't the right way to approach it. They didn't say that. They thought it was a great analysis. So we finalized that, got it to them, and they'll be sending that out to Fish and Wildlife here shortly to complete that aspect of the review. Based on the conversations I've had with our permit reviewer and the questions that he's asked about our plan, there was nothing significant. I don't think there's any major gotchas in this whole thing. And so now our team, while they finalize ecology's review, our team will start putting together the report of examination to give ecology something to work from. In addition, we're finalizing I always call this the wrong thing. The monitoring plan, the financial guarantee, how we've incorporated this into our various systems plans to make sure that it's funded through the lifetime of the project, and a contingency plan if things don't work within the time period that the legislature set out in the pilot program. So I'm very hopeful that we're getting close to the finish line, and we can take a look at annexations again and start squaring up the boundaries of the city.
Good. Any questions for Grant from council?
And Michael and Cody, did I miss anything, or?
No, it's a great summary, and we're all optimistic about the season summer ahead with hopeful good news from ecology, from all the good work that you and the rest of the team have been doing.
Yeah, good. Thank you for that reminder. They did initially indicate ecology that they thought they'd be ready for a report of examination this summer, and we're still on that track. So it seems like everything's chugging along. That's more of a railroad analogy, though, isn't it? I should find a riverboat one.
That's a nice segue for the railroad, which will be coming up next.
Yep.
Glenn, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I had, just about a couple questions, I guess. Is the ball in our court, right? When I say all our court, I mean Yelm's court, as far as what we need to get back to the Department of Ecology, or are we waiting on ecology to get back to Yelm?
They have everything they need for the review at this point, so we're just waiting for that process to happen.
Okay. And so you would expect, you were thinking by the end of summer for that to complete and get the allocation?
That was ecology's initial estimate when we submitted, and it doesn't feel like that's changed at all.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember DePeno?
Thank you, Mayor. Grant, what specifically were they wanting more information on? You said you submitted something additional about a month ago or so?
No, it was just actually last week, I believe, but they wanted to finalize the net ecological benefit analysis. And that was, our biologist took a look at our mitigation strategies out at the Smith Farm in Tri Lakes and on the Yelm Creek, and ran it through a number of different habitat models to make sure that the improvement in the habitat outweighed the deficit by taking the water out in the shoulder seasons by impacting in-stream flows. We didn't want to finalize that because nobody's done it before, and we didn't want to have ecology a package that they weren't happy with. So we wanted them to take a look at it, tell us if there was any gotchas or additional information needed. They did that initial review, got back to us and said, go ahead and submit the final plan, finalize the plan.
How long did that analysis take us? Rough estimate's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it was over a year.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you, Council.
Oh, go ahead, Glenn. Has another one.
I just had one other question because I'm
That's good.
not privy to all the information. How many acre feet would you expect grant to be granted to Yelm?
We've requested and were previously approved for 942 acre feet, which at the time when it was originally approved back in 2011, we anticipated that would last at our normal growth rate for over 20 years. At this point, it'll probably last longer because we've gotten so much better at using water and using less water.
Excellent.
The million-dollar question, though, Grant, is that the two competing forces that are the state agencies, one was the water rights to support the growth. The other was the Growth Management Act that said that we shall be a city of approximately 20,000 by the year 2045. Do these water rights, in your estimation, will they succeed in fulfilling that obligation to the Growth Management Act?
Yes. Yep.
Long question with a really good, simple answer. I like that.
And I'm smiling because I'd love to show you the spreadsheet that I put together and show you the math, but I know you don't like that stuff, so I won't do that.
My eyes just glassed over.
I know.
You just said spreadsheet, so.
I know.
Hearing that on your screen. Mr. Shornoff, you good? Okay. Council, any other questions for staff on the water rights? Okay,
Thank you all.
We'll move on to the next item, which is 6B, which is the Rail Advisory Committee. And I believe, is it Cody? Patrick.
I think it's Kathy. Yes.
Well, whomever would like to make a presentation to council on the railroad resolution, that's your cue.
I didn't mean to derail the conversation, sorry.
Thank you, council. That would be me, Mayor.
Thank you.
So before you have Resolution 612, which is repealing Resolution 379 that was adopted back in 1998. This one, we've talked about it a couple times during the study session. So the it was to purchase the railway and for economic development, and it also created the Rail Advisory Committee. And since that point, the railway, it's become infeasible, too much expensive. And so at this time, we're asking council to repeal Resolution 379 that would no longer have the Rail Advisory Committee. That's it. I don't know if council has any other questions. I'd be happy to try to answer them. If you're looking for additional history back further, Grant is here and he would be happy to answer any of the questions more along the lines of when this was originally adopted.
Any questions for staff? Council, Councilmember Wood.
I'm curious. I've kind of briefly read through the 1998 ordinance, and I'm curious where the committee is now, the Rail Advisory Committee. where they are, and if they're no longer in existence, what the history of that is, Grant.
Yeah, so that ordinance actually predates me. Not a lot does around here other than chief. But the committee was originally established to try to figure out the vision of what we were going to do with that rail line, and they really did that through the adoption of the vision, which was a rail connection, some point to Tacoma Rail, and a pedestrian pathway to the end point in Roy. The rail part just never worked out because things deteriorate and it gets very, very expensive to replace things like bridges. So in the last couple of years, the council then chose to really focus on the pedestrian or the multi-use trail rather than the rail line because our talks with Tacoma Rail fell through. They were no longer interested in coming out here, and it was getting more and more expensive to fix the bridge, to put a rail train on it, not to walk across it. So they really did their job back in the day, and then they haven't met since, I'm going to say since I've been here in 2002. And if they did, they were just wrapping up at that time with their work, which was to figure out what to do with the rail line. So they haven't met in years and years.
Okay, the reason I ask is, and you make the point exactly, that nobody's discussed about the just really what's going on at all there with the situation as far as an advisory committee. It just seems that we're being kind of hasty on this, and this wouldn't be something I'd be in a big hurry to do until we've actually spoken with some folks that, might have some 21st century information on this, and really kind of dig into it and look at it, because there's no going backwards once we move forward on this and decide to eliminate something that, in my belief, has potential value. And I really believe we got to think about this a little bit before we just jump in and eliminate this because once again, you haven't talked to any advisory board in reference to the rail since 2002 that you're aware of. I know that we've had discussions about it, and I've heard bits and pieces of information, but I haven't really seen any information, or we really haven't sat down and talked about the feasibility of what potentially could take place here. So that's my concern. That was what I appreciate you answering my question.
Councilmember DePinto.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sort of inclined to agree with Councilmember Wood on this one. While it has been discussed at Public Works Committee, we've discussed a little bit about the usefulness of it and a little bit more about the history. I do think it might be prudent to have a conversation in a study session a little bit more in depth about this. But I was wondering, in that resolution, it talks about the partnership with the city of Roy, or the town of Roy. I was wondering, were they reached out to regarding this?
Regarding the elimination of a rail advisory committee that hasn't met in over 16 years? I don't think so.
I can answer that, actually. And I can answer both council members DePinto's and Wood's questions, because as it turns out, I was around back then. In the late 90s, I was involved with the Planning Commission. Then in 2001, I did a 9-month stint as a city council member, and then returned to my duties on Planning Commission until I was elected in 2011. So I'm very well aware of why the Rail Advisory Committee was formed, which was in most part a legal technicality that we had to have so that we could make the recommendation to council on what to do with that rail line. The end result was, at the time, the Rail Advisory Committee was quite clear that although there was a possibility of using the rail line as a rail line, that they also, by acquiring that property, could use it as a multi-use property, that the land adjacent to it was wide enough, the right-of-way was wide enough where we could also build a recreational trail, which was also, so part of the recommendation was try to preserve the rail line for a potential use as a rail line in the future, but also preserve the property right so that we could use it as a recreational trail at some point down the line, so to speak. So once they made that, by creation of the Rail Advisory Committee, and they made that recommendation, the then council acted on that with consult with Roy. And since then, there was no need for the Rail Advisory Committee to meet because there's no other action for the council to take based on their recommendation. The councils are still working on the recommendation from the Rail Advisory Committee, which was to use that property in one of those two ways. So as you know from previous discussions, currently we have 1.5 miles of trail that was made alongside that right of way. And now we have applications in for grant funding to, and in addition to consulting with Roy, we've also been in communication with Pierce County, who are all fully supportive of us continuing that trail system down the line all the way to Roy at some point. So by dismantling, this is sort of a housekeeping thing to approve this resolution, which is just to repeal the first resolution, which was the creation of the Rail Advisory Committee, is simply to do that because it's no longer necessary legally for the city of Yelm to take action on that.
It was always meant to be an ad hoc committee.
An ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
Leaving it in place does no harm. This was just something that as Kathy Lindmeier's come on and she's looking for ways to clean up all of our records in consult with community development. This was one of those that needed to be cleaned up. It does not keep the council from reestablishing such a committee if another opportunity to use that rail line in a different way were to come up and need some consult.
And if I
sorry
could,
for the long-winded answer.
can I tag on just a little bit? We have been in touch with Roy through the trail planning process. They've applied for and received a planning grant to do just the same process that we've done to get money and extend the trail out to the river. They're doing the exact same thing on the Pierce County side and leading that effort. So we have been in touch, contact with Roy for the trail planning, not for the Rail Advisory Committee to meet.
Councilmember DePinto.
Thank you, Mayor. Understanding the history, which was explained by the mayor and by Grant, it does specifically spell out, though, in the resolution 379, whereas the city of Roy has expressed its interest in participating with the city of Yelm and setting public policy for the use and development of the BNSF Yelm branch insofar as such use, operation, development affects the city of Roy. Understanding that, I do think it would just behoove us to give them a courtesy call to let them know that this is what our plan is. And I'm sure it does sound like they would be fine. They've talked about planning for the trails with us. But I think it would make sense just to reach out to them, just give them a heads up.
I understand your desire to do so. I can tell you that in communications with the mayor of Roy and with the Pierce County Planning Group, they are well aware of that we are disbanding the Rail Advisory Committee, that we're moving forward with this as a trail project, not a rail line project. We've also been told by JBLM that that line is no longer viable to go through their property, so there's no way to make this line connect to the main line rail. And everybody's aware of that. So
as long as you've communicated then with the city of Roy and the mayor, I'm good with that then.
absolutely, everybody's on board, so to speak. I keep making train references. I can't help it.
Train puns.
So we need to leave the station.
Look what I've started. Did you have a question, Glenn?
Not a question. It's more of a comment. I don't know if anybody's thought about. I would imagine it crosses the canal, and I would just keep in mind, security of people possibly going off the trail onto the canal, which can be a dangerous area for people.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody heard the comment from Mr. Shorno, but it's just one to consider the liability of extending a trail that would cross two significant bodies of water. We know the history that the canal has had sometimes with pedestrians and vehicles, and we are very aware of that risk. you can consider that an attractive nuisance when you put pedestrians and that close to water. And you can be assured that in the planning process, just as the trail would cross or go under the highway, the suitable fencing and signage and precautions would be taken to safeguard the public in using that portion of the trail. Yeah, we thought about that.
And there's security for the landowners that are
Absolutely.
on the canal.
Yeah, same questions that have come up, and this is, again, going into a larger discussion about the trail itself, which is not what we're acting on tonight. But when the Chehalis Western Trail was created, for example, a lot of those same concerns about property security and so forth were addressed by the county. So there's a good template for us to follow. But again, tonight's action, council, is simply to take the action recommended by staff to repeal Resolution 379, which established the Rail Advisory Committee in the first place. Councilmember Kaminsky.
I move that we repeal resolution number 379 and approve resolution number 612 in its place.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Get a roll call vote, please.
Asked for a roll call vote. Councilmember Blair, did you hear the motion and second?
The only question I have is, can it be, don't we have to repeal it first and then approve the other separate?
The reading of the motion was a little backward, but the effect is the same. The effect of the motion was to.
What I mean is we have to repeal it first and then vote on the new resolution separate, or is that not correct?
Not correct.
Just clarifying.
The motion is to approve Resolution 612. The current resolution would, in its effect, repeal the previous Resolution 379.
Okay.
Sorry, I read that backwards.
With that clarifying question asked and answered, Councilmember Blair, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Carmody is absent. Councilmember Curry?
Yes.
Councilmember Wood?
No.
Councilmember DePinto?
Yes.
Councilmember Kaminsky?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, Kathy. And thank you to previous councils and planning commissioners and everybody else who have moved this project forward. It wasn't what we thought it was going to be in the past, but it's going to be a great thing moving on in the future. So good work, everybody. Councilmember DePinto?
Personal privilege, maybe excused for a few minutes.
Yes. Councilmember DePinto will be leaving the council chamber for a short period of time. We'll move on to the next item. And if necessary, I think we have enough still for a quorum to take action on it.
Thank you, Mayor. So the next item before you is Resolution 613. And this is adding the advisory boards and commissions roles and responsibilities that we've talked about at several study sessions to the mayor and city council protocol manual as Appendix 13. The items in here will help give the boards and commissions guidance and bring things consistent for all of our boards and commissions, unless they do have the statutory requirements out there, as some of them do. And I know you guys have asked about that in the past. And so within this document, those items, those were separated out for you so that when you were reading it, you were able to identify those. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Councilmember Wood.
I move we approve resolution number 613, adding the advisory boards and commission roles and responsibilities to the mayor and city council protocol manual as Appendix 13.
Second.
Any other questions for staff on this one? We do have, even with Councilmember Curry, Pinto's absence, we have a quorum and ability to pass this resolution. So I'll just ask for a yes or no vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then motion passes. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, and one more item that we have is ordinance 1073. This one is amending Yelm Municipal Code as it relates to the boards and commissions. And so a lot of the information that is in the roles and responsibilities, we've removed some of that from the municipal code. Having it in the council, mayor and city council member protocol manual, though it still comes before council for any changes and amendments, so council will still be able to make those changes. It just makes them a little bit, makes it easier to make any changes down the road. So as we get going with our boards and commissions, we start staffing them. If we see anything we need to do, we can bring that back to you for updates. On the changes, I made reference to the items that we're removing, as far as, where those items were located in the roles and responsibilities document for, easy cross-reference. And once again, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer that.
Well, yeah, Councilmember Wood.
I move we approve ordinance number 1073, amending Yelm Municipal Code sections 2.32, Parks Advisory Committee, 2.34, Tree Advisory Board, 2.35, Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, 2.40, Yelm Arts Commission, 2.51, Policy Advisory Committee, 2.63, Yelm Library Advisory Board, 18.04, Planning Commission, and 18.05, Historic Preservation Commission.
Second. Seconded by Councilmember Curry. Is there any discussion or are there any questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes, and I believe we now have a new record for the longest motion ever read on the floor of the Yelm City Council chamber.
Well, thank you very much, council. We're really excited. We're ready to start advertising to get these vacancies filled on the boards and commissions. Our staff has been hard at work training to take on the new roles that they haven't done yet. We've been doing some practicing with the Parks Committee. And so, yeah, we're excited to get this done and to move forward, and we'll be giving you more updates.
I want to take a moment to thank Kathy Lindemeyer for her role in this. She hasn't been with us all this long, and yet she's taken on so many tasks. This is something that we've been wanting to accomplish for quite a long time, and she was able to take her skills and apply that to this task, and here we are, which now allows the citizens of Yelm to find ways to help our city along by applying to work on some of these boards and commissions. So thank you again. This will soon be updated on the website so people can take that opportunity to apply. If you go to the website, go to the left-hand side, like what I want to do, you can go to boards and commissions and find the fillable application form to get started on that journey of public service. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Before we go on, I'm just going to check our comments. Okay, comments are fine. In which case, now we can move on. Old business had been previously taken care of by council. So we go to, with no other business before the council, we go to updates, starting with City Administrator Michael Graham.
Good evening, council. I have a couple of updates for you, and then just highlights of the upcoming events, just so you know what's happening on the horizon. With regard to the thing that is of great interest to all of you, of how many applications we have gone from what was reported as 0, but was actually 3 applications for the vacant city council position at the last meeting, to now there are 7 applications for that vacant council position. So that's great to hear. And the deadline, Kathy, remind me when the deadline is. I remember council extended it 2 weeks.
It's
Anyway,
this Friday at 5 o'clock.
thank you. So for anyone watching this Friday at 5 o'clock, anyone that's interested in that vacant position, get your application in. A couple of things that we've been working on. The council approved funding for the Yelm Chamber of Commerce in the budget. We're working on a contract with them, and we will draft that up and send that to the General Government Committee or the Finance Committee, wherever is appropriate, probably Finance Committee, and then get that to council for your action. And as you heard from Grant and all of you discussed tonight, we're focused on the highest priorities of the water reclamation facility, water rights, and the habitat conservation plan. You know, there's other priorities that we have, but those are the ones that are essentially we're burning the midnight oil on right now. Just to give you a preview of topics and upcoming events, at the next council meeting on April 27th and May 4th, there's going to be a series of proclamations, one for Bike Month, one for Student of the Month. We also finally received the long-awaited contract for the joint animal services agreement that we have with Thurston County. That'll be a huge help. Our public works team has already merged seamlessly with the Thurston County animal control department, and they've taken that load off of our team members, but to have it finalized and formalized by council will be a nice period at the end of a very long sentence. We were supposed to have that done back in January, but our partners took a little while crossing all the T's. The other things that we'll have on your docket is a national fitness resolution, and we need you to approve the upcoming community events, and that's per the Yelm Municipal Code. And just as a preview, unless there's some rollback, the events that we're excited about and we think we're going to be able to have are the Jazz Fest, the Nisqually Barbecue Rally, the Nisqually Valley Barbecue Rally, the National Day of Prayer, and of course, the Mermaid Festival. So all of those will be teed up in an ordinance for you to adopt per the Yelm Municipal Code. And we will also have presentations by the Thurston County Solid Waste Department and updates on the priority public works projects that we just talked about. And then we'll highlight some of the organizational changes that we're working our way through and vetting to fill the void of Grant Beck's retirement that's coming up here in August. The last two things for you all. If you haven't signed up already, you're going to see information coming out on social media and on the website, but there's a new earthquake notification system that actually has sensors buried in the ground that actually gives you advance notice of an earthquake. Our chief was going over it today. It's pretty awesome, but encourage everyone to sign up. And when you do, they're going to do a test of the earthquake notification on May 4th. So look for our communications on that. And then last, you'll be seeing information go out about the splash pad opening, which is going to happen on Memorial Day weekend. Our public works director is really excited to open that thing up. We have not gotten the green light yet from the public health department, from the county. We need that before we open it up for the planned day of Memorial Day weekend. But we're optimistic and looking forward to that water feature being turned on for everyone. And our staff are out there testing it right now, and they're putting up all that features, anticipating that we'll get the green light from the public health department. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Councilmember DePinto.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael, good report. I was just curious, I heard a couple big ones left off of those events. I'm not sure if it's two in the future or what, or maybe, sorry, the first one's Prairie Days. Is that occurring this year?
Mayor?
So there has not been a formal getting together of the ad hoc Prairie Days committee, citizens who have put on the previous few Prairie Days. But there has been some discussion with the chamber to consider putting on a Prairie Days parade at the very least, and that would be shooting for mid to late August for that. But it's still in the talks, and it's still, of course, very contingent on the status of the health.
Thank you, Mayor. And the other one was Christmas in the Park. Is that just too far off in the future?
It is. However, the motivation of the staff, the other people who make Christmas in the Park happen, is an undeniable force of nature of its own. We don't need sensors in the ground to feel their enthusiasm for that. And so it will continue in some form. I can guarantee you that, but they usually don't get the planning going until July, August at the very earliest.
Sounds good. Thank you. That was it.
But I will tell you, the planning is already happening by our Public Works Department. They are upgrading the electrical systems there to plan for even more lights should we get the go ahead for Christmas in the park. So the last updates were fantastic and the light features this year is going to be even better with even more capacity provided by your Public Works Department. So more news to come there.
And maybe no windstorm to blow everything over this year. That would be nice. Okay, so no other questions for Michael? And we'll go down through council reports, starting with Council Member Blair.
I haven't had any meetings, so I got nothing.
Councilmember Curry?
Well, we had government committee meeting where we went over the resolutions we just approved tonight. And it was our recommendation that they come forward to this. Then the senior center had an Easter dinner with approximately 35 to 40 people there, which was good for being in the middle of a pandemic. And Public Works. I'm excited because the exercise program that Cody went out to get a grant for through ARP has been approved to go into the park here. And we're looking for financing from Joint Base. And there's a possibility they may help us out quite a bit on putting it in with promotion on it. Also, grinder pumps are coming. They cost less than a step pump. And Molly's gonna plant wildflowers on Northern MP Road and weed them. Do I have that right, Joe? Yeah, all right. But I thought, that's it.
Well, thank you for not going into too much detail on what a grinder pump is.
Well, it just grinds everything up and it makes it much better.
That's why I said thank you for not going into detail on what.
Yeah, well, I figured you could kind of get it.
But they are great upgrades, and again, moving forward, our wastewater treatment facility is going to be better off because it provides food and all that stuff. So thank you for that report. Councilmember Wood.
I also attended the government committee meeting, and I have a transportation policy board meeting in the morning.
Good. Councilmember DePinto.
Mayor, as Councilmember Curry already told you mostly about the Public Works. The only thing I want to add is we discussed a little bit more about the water rights issues. And we got the report today. May 28th, the splash pad Michael already stole my thunder on that one, but May 28th, the splash pad will be opening. And that's going to be Tuesdays through Sundays with Monday closed as a day of maintenance. Other than that, I met with I met with 2 council candidates for who have applied, and I'm looking forward to hearing them speak hopefully speak during our next or whenever meeting we choose to have them come in. And I'll be attending the study meeting since we don't have a member currently for that, and I'm the backup, so I'm happy to pinch hit. That's it.
Very good. Councilmember Kaminsky.
I haven't had any city meetings. Nisqually River Council is this Friday. And I do know, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited to. The Bounty for Families, on behalf of them, our friends at Elite Renovation, we're starting the little storage shed for the garden the garden in the park. And I've seen the design. It's a very fanciful kind of Hobbit house design, and it's going to be adorable. So I can't wait to see that. And I have no other updates.
Thank you. Well, they did build the basics tool shed, and it does look more like a shed than a Hobbit house, but hopefully they're going to put some adornment on there.
Okay.
Also, it's a great time to get out to the park and see everything that is going on out there. You notice little white tufts of flowers growing up out of the lawn. Those were purposefully planted there by our grounds maintenance people because they add a little splash of color to the green lawn. And the community garden volunteers have not only put up the shed, but if you look more closely, there's already plantings going in. And this weekend, you'll see activity out there by a Girl Scout troop who's working with with Cody over at Public Works to put in a butterfly garden on that swale that's otherwise just been a wasted swale there by the parking lot by the community center. So a lot of people getting involved in our community garden and our parks, which is really nice to see. And on that note, just a reminder, council, you have a great staff here. And Michael and I do the best that we can to serve and support the council. And if you have questions on any of these things that are going on in our city, we would encourage you to call us and ask us these questions rather than disseminate inadequate information or wrong information on social media posts. We're here to serve you. Take advantage of us and we'll get the right information disseminated, which I know is all of your desire to provide good and accurate information to our community. Other than that, I have been usurped all of my best stuff. Everybody else got the gold out there, so I have no further report other than once again to say thanks to staff for making this happen and to council for coming into the meeting. So I would entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.